The next one I talk about is 3D puzzles. This is, as I say, a fairly simple 3D puzzle. This is one that Hans does a lot of as part of his marketing scheme to get people to buy his stuff, which I think is a super clever idea. But it's just pretty simple, and you can do it. He does it freeform, and you can, or you can just. In this case, what I did is I just kind of drew in pencil on each side what I wanted to do. Cut out one side. Use your packing tape, wrap it, cut the other side. Now you've got a 9-piece 3-dimensional puzzle. The only thing you have to be careful of is on a given side that you don't cross these lines. You really mess it up. But in this case, I mean, it's a little longer piece, so I got 2 tabs on each one. Same concept. Easy to do, freeform. He does it at 3/4 of an inch. Pine, I like a little more space, but whatever works. Makes a nice puzzle. And pretty quick and inexpensive. Another is a 3D puzzles. You see a lot. This is a snake. Oops, I got to do it the right order here. And the pieces come out like that. The way you do this one, I've made the snake, the pattern is the same size as the piece, or cut the piece of wood down to the size of the pattern. And if you noticed, I numbered the tabs just on here, so which order I want to cut these things, because the order is very, very important on these. Let's see. Get this back in here. And what you do is there's my pattern. Okay. And this one, it's a 3D, but you're going to want to put tape on your wood first, because this outside piece you're going to use. A lot of 3D you don't use the outside. And what I do is then fold on the line to get a nice try to do this as carefully as you can. It's not super critical with this piece. And then once you put your tape on, you glue it on. Then what I do is cut off pieces for the head and for the tail. Well, you got 2 sides for that. So you cut the first side, tape it back on, then glue the other side. Do that for the head and the tail. And then you can throw away the pieces for the head and tail. So that's the way those look. Then, if you notice, these are numbered. Okay, the furthest, the cut closest to the head is 1 on one side, 2 on the next. So when you're cutting this, you cut this tab out, turn it over, cut this tab out, and then as you cut things out, make sure you remove the pieces you've cut out from the piece. So as you're cutting it, it's getting progressively slower or smaller. So you cut one out, set it aside, cut the next piece out, set it aside, cut the next piece out, set it aside, and go all the way down your piece.
So you're going side 1, side 2,
yes.
Side 1, side 2, and after each cut, you take the piece out.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am. If you don't, you're going to start cutting these pieces into multiple.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
it makes kind of a cool.
If that's the same one that I cut, is once it's together, if you put a skewer through the first piece, it holds all the other pieces together.
Yeah. Oops.
because of the head, the way you did it, you put a skewer through that hole in the head,
The eyes,
the pieces stay together, they can't come apart.
yeah. I usually, you can see, got a piece of a toothpick. You know, you drill your hole. If you want it to be, that hole to be just barely bigger so that it holds it good. And it needs to stick out a little bit so somebody can come in and push on one side so they can get a hold of it and pull it out. But you don't want it so far out that it's obvious this is what you're going to do. You know, but once that's there, it stays together. It doesn't come out.
Where'd you find that pattern?
I think this was on the Skull Saw magazine. These are very similar puzzles. Same concept. These were designed by George North. Many years ago. They were in issue 9 of the Scroll Saw magazine. These are the pattern. Now, I've altered his pattern a little bit. Unfortunately, I made a little bit of a mistake when I did it, but his pattern, particularly for what he would do when he cut it, he would cut out the sides. No, cut out the top. Nope. Which one did you do first? He did the sides first. Put them back on, glued out the top. Now when you did cut out the top and the bottom, you cut off the pattern. So he would then he had a pattern where the pattern, in fact, went down and into this here and back up. He had a lot longer pattern. To me, I just didn't like that. See if I got one here. Yeah. So I changed the pattern to this format. So I have to do that, I have to cut it out a little differently than he did. What I do, I did it with the bear to make sure that the concept works. When I get the piece, I put it, without any cutting, I glue my pattern on. You know, I'm just gonna, it'll be easier to show this way. And it gets a little harder to explain, but it actually works pretty good, I think. Okay. Get the pattern on. And if I can get over here, as you're looking at the piece, this is going to be the first piece to cut out, which is basically the bear's nose.
Hands in the way.
Oh, okay. Thank you. The bear's nose.
Can you tilt it so we can see what you're doing? Okay, thank you.
Okay. I was trying to, I just didn't tip it enough. Okay, this is the bear's nose. This is the first piece I want to cut out. But to do that, it's got to have cuts from this side to free just the nose. If I cut it first, the first thing I did was cut this, I'd have a piece the full length with that shape. I need to cut that down so there's only that big. So I have to cut these top and bottom of it before I cut the sides. Because cutting from here, I'm cutting the sides of it. Here, I'm cutting the top and bottom. So what I do is I figure out, okay, where's this end going to be, and I mark it, both sides here. Then I'll drill a hole, and the first cut I make is this cut. Glue the piece, tape the piece back in, then come in with a hole and cut this. Take that out, and I've got the correct piece. Now, what there'll be corner pieces that I use and so forth, but I'll have this piece, there'll be a piece on top of it and a piece below it that are scrap. Okay, set that aside, and then move over, and then And then what I'll do is also look at, okay, the second piece, what I'm going to do second, I need to cut.
Hands in your way.
Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta write. It's hard to do everything. But so I try to make sure that I mark just beyond where number 2 would go on this side. And so after I've cut one, I'll cut this outside edge down to that point, come back over, now cut out piece 2, and after I've removed, make sure that piece 1 is out of the way, cut out the piece 2, and then I'll have 3 pieces that'll come out, top, middle, and bottom. I keep the middle. And just do that back and forth. You end up with this. When you're done, you've got the outside that's all connected, and you've pulled out the inside, and a bunch of little scrap pieces, but you'll have the pieces, and this is what comes
The
out.
principle in that, you put the toothpick or whatever through the eye hole and holds it all together.
Yeah, and that holds it all together. And obviously the eye hole should be drilled before you do anything else. It's hard to do it afterwards and make things line up correctly. But it's been a while ago, I went out online, and there is a ton of these out there. All sorts of things.
What are they called?
I don't remember the search I did to find them. I went out and looked. I'm sorry. I will try and find it, but
You're trying to figure it out.
yeah. There's whales and sharks and birds and all sorts of different things that are done this way, and most of them are kind of rough, but they're good enough to work. I tend to take all my patterns, scan them into the computer, convert them to an SVG file so I can play with them a little easier. But it's not necessary. They're good enough to cut. Just make copies of them.
How do you play with an SVG file?
Whole other class. Inkscape. That's with Inkscape.
Simple answer.
Yeah. It's beyond the scope of this class. I'm sorry. I'd love to talk to you about it, but
That could be a class within itself.
oh yeah, it's a class on itself. I have given that class, but it's when you're doing these kinds of puzzles, it's sometimes hard to hold on to them. So I like using one of these. And one of the things that I thought of is if you're doing something, in this case I didn't need to do it, but if you're using something that's cutting pretty close to the edge, and you don't want to cut into your wooden clamp, you clamp, put a filler, an 1/8 inch piece of filler in here, so that you cut all the way through your piece if you need to, but not into your clamp. That'll save. And
How do you know that? How do you know that?
I actually stopped before I cut the clamp, so I've come close. In this case, if you had 2 clamps, so I had one set for this way, or I had a big clamp set for this way, and then a smaller one like this set for this way. So it was easier to switch back and forth. Because I just find for these 3Ds, I just find it's, particularly when you're cutting this side, if you get your hand up here, you're going to get it pinched by the blade holder. So I'd get that just primarily for that. I can hold it, but I find that's a lot easier just to do this and move it this way as I do. So it just keeps it. But if you do that, make sure you get the piece flat, totally flat on the thing. I've had some situations where the piece wanted to rise up a little bit, so just be careful, make sure you get it all the way down. Next ones I want to talk about are the logic puzzles. And that looks like a pretty simple puzzle. It's not. It doesn't come apart unless you know the trick. And comes apart just fine. What this is, you saw, and you tilt the head at an angle. Doesn't matter which way you go, right or left, whichever works for you, and you start doing some test cuts. And you can either do it as a circle or just cut a tab. And this one's actually a little loose, but when you test it, so that it should only cut, when you cut it, the pieces should push through about halfway, maybe a little more, but not all the way through. You're better off using a harder wood. If you use pine or something that's really soft, eventually they'll start forcing it through, so you want the wood to be a little stronger. And then, so you get that set up. You don't really need to use a pattern, but or you can draw it on. Just draw a piece on the piece of wood. Cut a piece of wood that's basically square. Well, the key thing is find the center of it. And this is this way you find it, or you can do if you're just drawing it. Find where your center is, and then from about the center of the outside, you just go in, cut the piece, take the blade out, put it back. So each piece you're cutting from the outside to the center, outside to the center, outside to the center. If you do it straight across, then one way or another it'll go all the way out. But if you do it that way, you'll get this effect. And
Can you tilt that so we can see you don't have a pattern on the paper yet, do you?
well, that's what the pattern is.
Buzz, can you get in closer?
So the center is right where the lines cross, right there in the center.
Much better. Buzz. Thank
Okay.
you.
That makes more sense.
Okay. So as I said, you cut each one outside to the center. That wasn't in the instructions that I found, because this was also in Scroll Saw magazine. I had to figure that one out. I figured, why isn't this working? And then I finally realized that, okay, you have to cut from the outside in, pull the blade out of the work, do it again, and from the next side, 4 sides.
So you can't cut to the center and then cut it back
No.
Nope.
About what was roughly, are you looking at
It's about a 3 to 5 degrees, I think.
about 35?
3 to 5.
Okay, got it.
Depends on the blade.
Depends on the blade, depends on the thickness of the wood you got. So it's a lot of things that it varies with. But it's a simple one to cut, and I've had a lot of fun with people. This is my gimmick in my booth, is to have one of these and have people try to do it.
Do you have to cut it in the same direction, each piece, or does it matter? You know what I mean? You have to make sure the blades go.
As long as particularly if you put a pattern, as long as the pattern sides up and cut in each time, and just now if you flipped it over and
So it wouldn't matter if I turned it clockwise one time and then counterclockwise the other, as long as I went from the outside to the center? Oh.
correct, correct.
Because your angle on your table is already set.
Right, angle it. That's it. And it doesn't matter whether you tip left or right, because it'll just be that. That one's getting a little loose now because it's been used a lot. And then we've all seen these kinds of puzzles where you have a marble. There's one in there somewhere. But you put the marble in one hole and try to get it to come out the other hole. And as you can see, I've labeled each one what it is. And the pattern that I got called for 7 layers at 1/2 inch thick. And I don't have 1/2 inch material. So I did 5 pieces at 3/4 inch and 2 pieces at 1/8 inch. And actually, if I was going to do this with good wood, like a walnut or something like that, I do, and let me lay these out and then I can show you better. That's the top. Okay, that's top 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 7, nothing on it. Just no cut. 1, 3, and 5, all I have in is a couple holes. Those pieces, I would make, if I was doing it on a walnut, I'd make those pieces all each 1/4 of an inch and leave these 3 pieces at 3/4. They call for the pattern called for a 3/8 inch marble. I couldn't find a small enough marble. So I went online and found these. It's slingshot ammo. Yeah, slingshot ammo. You can either get it glass or metal. You can see here. And it was like 500 pieces for $12. I would recommend that you have your marble before you start cutting. I didn't here.
That'd be a problem.
That was because I found a marble that would go through here, but it wouldn't go through all of it.
Yeah.
So what you do is after you cut out the piece, then you can put the marble in there to make sure that it moves around freely within. And in fact, what I do is I put, I'm going on this one. Put the marble in, and then just as you move it around, okay, it's flowing smoothly through there, no problem. So it'll go through. The other thing with these, it's you need to make sure your alignment and setup is correct, that you glue them up in the correct order and the correct alignment. If you've got the 2 pieces that are supposed to be like this and you put them like this, it isn't going to work right. So what I do is a couple things. First place, I stack them up, 3, and start marking things. This one, okay. Stack them up. If you notice, I got them stacked up. I've put a line, and a little bit of a diagonal line on the outside edge. When you're going, make sure that's done right. As you cut them out, it's kind of hard to see. Let me make a little. I put the level number and an arrow showing which direction should be the common side. What I call the top side, because it's and it doesn't hurt to mark it on the bottom as well. But if you're doing that, you need to say, okay, this is the top, this is the bottom, because you don't want it to go in this way either. This one wouldn't matter, but some of them might. If this one, if you got it in this way, it's not going to work right. So there's really, as I said, there's only 3 that really constitute the puzzle. This is just a kind of retaining piece to keep it from falling through where it's not supposed to. So it doesn't need to be full size. It just needs to be, hole needs to be big enough. So that's why I say, if I was making a nice one, say out of walnut, the top, these 2 pieces, and the bottom would be at 1/4 inch. These would be at 3/4 inch. When I cut it, if you look at this piece or the pattern closely, you see it's a lot of sharp edges and angles.
Lawrence, can you get in close so we see?
Sharp angles and so forth. I smooth those out as I'm cutting it. So it's just to basically modify the pattern as I go. Because this is not super critical as long as you don't get something too narrow to get a piece through. Get your marble through. That's why I say get the marble before you start cutting. And then you can always test it to make sure it's going to work for you.
Where'd you get the pattern from?
That is a very good question. I don't know. Let's see. Well, it says it's Nestronics. Nestronics. Whereas I don't remember where I got it. And it comes like this. You know, it's 3 or 4 pages. I cut it down to a little smaller, but it works pretty well. The other thing you got to, as you say, you got to be real careful about is your gluing. Typically, I would recommend that you don't glue up more than 2 pieces at a time. Don't try to do the whole stack, because the pieces will move as you're working with them. So what I typically do is, see, this is 1, I got 1 and 2, let's go like this. Once I've cut them, I'll glue them up, put it on here, try to even it up as best I can. I'll take a scrap piece, put on top of it, and I got bags of gallon bags of sand that I put on here. And once that's done, I can get in here and do a final check. If I use a clamp, the clamps always are going to move it a little bit. So get it as good as you can that way. What I did is once I had this one all glued up, then I took it to a belt sander and smoothed it out and evened it out. So if it gets a little bit off, it's not going to kill you. And there's enough that you could actually sand off quite a bit and make it nice and smooth, and smooth off the corners and so forth. But yeah, contrasting woods would be real nice. What I had to say, any of this stuff, you can sand, paint. That's all optional as to what you want to do and finish. Something like this, if I was doing this in a walnut, I'd put a nice lacquer finish on it or something like that. Any questions?
If you had a jig, I'm a jig fella, but if you had a piece of, a corner piece with a flat bottom, so that you could set your corners in there and then push them into the corner and then clamp them down, would that be a method of?
Yeah, that would be a method to work. But what I found that this, I put together, I've got 2 or 3 bundles of sand. I'll put 2 or 3 of them together, and let it sit maybe an hour. And then at that point, it's not going to move again. And then put the two bundles together. So I find it doesn't take too long. I thought about doing a jig like that, but I'm not good at making square corner jigs. So, but it would help in making sure that everything lined up properly. Yeah. Thank you.